This meeting of the committee as a whole for Human Resources and Education will now come to order. Ms. Coakley, would you please take the roll?
Mr. Winkler,
Here.
Mr. Green, Mrs. Heinz, Mr. Derman, Mr. Luke, Mr. Harrell, Mr. Nation,
Here.
Mrs. Richardson, Mrs. Baker, Mr. Bittencourt, Mrs. Lamy, Mr. Hersey, Mr. Bro, Mr. Kuzan, Mrs. Page.
Thank you. Would you please stand for the invocation led by the board member, Mr. Nation, followed by the presentation of the colors by Fountain High NJ ROTC, and the pledge led by Cadet Lieutenant Colonel Sebastian Skimmons.
Let us pray. Direct us, O Lord, with your most gracious favor, that all our work, begun, continued, and ended in you, may find favor in your sight. And finally, by your mercy, may we obtain everlasting life through Christ our Lord. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing as the Fountain Blue High School JROTC, under the command of Lieutenant Colonel Terry Douglas and Sergeant First Class Frederick Lachey. Students presenting the colors are Cadet Major Wyatt Revitt, Cadet Sergeant Victoria Boudreau, Cadet Sergeant Major Kyle Lunsford, Cadet Corporal Ashley Woods. Thank you. Please be seated. At this time, I'd like to ask Superintendent Frank Jabbia to proceed with our special recognition tonight.
It is my honor tonight to salute our veterans this evening. We especially honor our employees and our community members who have served in any branch of the military. At this time, STPPS TV has produced a special video honoring our veterans, and this video will begin with the national anthem by Mandeville High School's show choir. Next, the Armed Forces Medley will play. At that time, we're going to ask veterans to please stand and remain standing as your branch's service is honored. Remain standing as long as your flag is presented. The video will conclude with special remarks from cadets representing all 8 of our high schools' JROTC programs. Please enjoy the video.
Left, face, present, arms.
Right face, forward, march. Veterans Day is a day set aside where America can honor the men and women that have served in the armed forces.
It's about honoring all the veterans who fought for us and even the ones who are still alive today.
Where would we be without them? Where would we be without the standing soldiers and the fallen ones?
It's like a memorial to the end of World War I, which Armistice Day, the 11th month, the 11th day, 11th hour.
I'd say the main purpose of Veterans Day is to honor veterans that have served for us.
It is about celebrating the honor and courage of those still living within the military today and the families that they left behind.
I think it's important just because of the giant sacrifice that the veterans have made and their patriotism for the community and how much they love the community.
They do a lot for us, so they deserve a day to celebrate.
All right, everybody, lock it up.
I would say JRTC really accelerated my appreciation for veterans as a whole.
Being in the JRTC has given me great respect for all veterans, for their sacrifice and their honor towards the community.
If we don't have a military, we don't have a country, we don't have protection, and our country is the definition of freedom.
You owe respect to the people who risk themselves for you, despite not even knowing you, despite not even having obligations to you.
Can someone else give me another example?
Yes.
My uncle is in the Army, and my brother's in the Marines, and they both inspired me.
My grandfather is a veteran, and he's inspired me to strive to be the best that I can be in the community.
My grandpa was a Navy veteran, and he's actually inspired me to join the military.
My grandfather, Ronald Drez, he is a Marine, a former Marine, and he has inspired me greatly.
Anytime my dad talks about the Army, I just love the stories. And my brother went in right out of high school, 2018. He's in Syria right now.
My father was 82nd Airborne in the Army, and my grandfather, who lived with me and acts as a secondary father, was a Marine.
I had a grandfather who fought in the military in World War II, and he inspires me to be the best of myself, be the best person I can be to help everyone and just to be a good person in general.
Courage is one of our last that we'll talk about today, about our 3 core values in the Navy and the Navy ROTC. When I think of a veteran, I think of honor, I think of courage, and I think of commitment.
Loyalty, duty, respect, self-service, honor, integrity, and personal courage.
Bravery, patriotism, selflessness,
Freedom, kind-heartedness.
A veteran is courage, selfless, and honor, almost completely encapsulated within a person.
Platoon, attention. Right face,
I want to thank all the veterans out there watching this. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your sacrifice and for fighting for this country.
Anytime I see like someone with even a veteran's hat on, like my grandpa or something, I'll definitely thank them because that's a huge sacrifice.
Just a simple nod and a thank you is enough because they are risking their life for you.
You might not want to say it, but just let them know that you care.
Because they put their lives on the line every day by committing acts of selfless service, and they expect nothing in return.
And they deserve all the respect in the world that we can give to them.
To all veterans and future veterans, thank you very much for your service.
Thank you for your dedication.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Thank you, veterans, for everything you've ever done for us.
Present arms. Order arms.
School Board Member Mike Winkler will now share a resolution to officially acknowledge our veterans.
Before reading, I'd like to recognize our veteran, Ron Betancourt, and for all that he did for us, not only as a veteran, but as a board member. And I'd like to thank Ms. Fuller. I assume you put this together? Team, but you were in charge of the team? Thank you, Ms. Fuller. Whereas Veterans Day will be observed throughout the nation, November 11th, 2021, and on this day, we will honor all Americans who have served in the Air Force, Army, Coast Guard, Marine Corps, Navy, and Space Force, both in times of war and peace. And whereas we are urged to recognize the sacrifices of our veterans for their courage, valor, and contributions put forth in order to preserve our freedom, and whereas there are about 18 million veterans living among us in every state and territory. And we recognize that these servicemen and women helped shape American history while serving in defense of our nation. And whereas we are extremely grateful to our school system employees who have served our country in the military, as well as our junior ROTC instructors for their important role in the education of students and their efforts to instill a sense of patriotism in all children from St. Tammany Parish School System. And whereas we are reminded to honor our veterans for their service. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the members of St. Tammany Parish School Board acknowledge and appreciate the dedicated service of all those who have served in the armed forces of this country, and encourage our schools to honor these proud men and women. Be it further resolved that this resolution be spread upon the official minutes of this board, with a copy being sent to all schools and offices within the school system to post as a sign of respect and gratitude to our armed forces. And I so move. Thank you. We'll move on with, oh, you got it? All in favor, say aye. Yes.
We want to recognize our veterans and their commitment and sacrifice that their families and themselves have made for this country. We would like to close out this tribute to veterans with the playing of taps by Fontainebleau High School student Amelia Floyd. I would like to remind you that after the playing of taps, there should be no applause. Instead, we will end with a salute by having a moment of silence for all those veterans who have gone before us and to secure our freedom. We also honor those that currently fight for our freedoms right now. Thank you. You may be seated.
Mr. Winkler, over here.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. I'd like to take the opportunity to recognize some people in the Human Resources Department, Megan her staff, who sent out information and the little flags to all of our veterans throughout the system and invited them here tonight.
Okay, thank you.
We appreciate the work that she did.
Yeah. This time we're going to take a break, Superintendent, or keep going? Okay. Let's see, because I'm out there. We're going to recognize, anyone on the board want to recognize a visitor that's here tonight?
Mr. Winkler, if I could say one thing, if you don't mind. It's not that a visitor, but I'd like to recognize Mr. Kuzan. He is the grandfather now of the homecoming queen at North Shore High School. So congratulations, Mr. Guinness.
If you haven't seen the picture yet, they'll probably get around to it. Okay, Mr. Jabbia, you want to update us on, you got some?
Thank you very much. I'll just take a few minutes of your time, please. First off, our COVID numbers continue to go down, even with the removal of masks and many of our gatherings that have taken place, such as homecoming and that in the last couple of weeks. For the parish of St. Tammany, we're down to the lowest positivity rate since June, which is at 2.7%. Also, we only had this past week 21 positives by students, only 101 quarantines, which is extremely low for us right now. Only 4 positives among staff and 5 quarantines among staff. So we're really excited about the future and what the future holds, and extremely excited for where we are. If I could just get a few minutes of your time just to go through our successful St. Tammany successful schools millage renewal. Remember that our millages must be, every 10 years, must be approved by the voters and renewed by the voters. Right now, we have 4 propositions, that are on the ballot currently. Early voting goes through Saturday, and then election day, of course, is the 13th, the next Saturday. As we've discussed in the past for our millages, normally our millages are tied to large events, say the approval of SROs or MHPs, or large construction projects or infrastructure such as technology. The way these mills were set up and these propositions were set up back in the late 60s was to build the actual infrastructure inside of our operating budget. So they're woven into what we do on a daily basis here at St. Tammany. So as you can see by the flyer, and we passed some flyers out and I have it displayed there, there are 3 main aspects. The first one is school operations, which is just what you think. It's the operating, what it takes to operate a school campus. The second one is essential staffing. Of course, we've had to add so much over the years with the programs and the services that we have to provide, that staffing has had to be increased. If you could think about where we were in the late 60s to where we are now, the amount of programs and things that we offer have gone up dramatically. And the last thing is all the programs that we offer. All the programs that are built into our school system to supplement what we do, such as STEM, music, art, band, athletics, PE. Those are all things that were interwoven into what we do every day. So you won't see directly where these functions are going, but this is 25% of our operating budget. So, whether you can't actually, see exactly the projects we're talking about. Like I said, they're interwoven into what we do, but it does affect all 38,000 students, over 5,600 employees, and 55 campuses. So it has a major impact. And again, this is a renewal. There is 0 tax increase felt by anyone. This is a renewal of millages that have been on the books, like I said, since the late 60s, that provide us our operating budget that we operate here with the St. Tammany. So again, if I could just remind everyone out, to please go out and cast your vote. Please get out. Again, early voting goes till Saturday, this Saturday, and then the election is the 13th. So I appreciate you giving me an opportunity to explain that. It's been on the agenda, the resolutions we've been doing basically every month but I appreciate the time just to kind of run through this. If any of the board members have any questions or anything, I'll answer them if you have any.
Thank you, Mr. Winkler. Mr. Javier, thank you. Question related to COVID. You mentioned the COVID numbers. As many of us heard probably today, the massive intrusion of the federal government into our lives continues, and this authoritarian march continues by this government to now have the OSHA mandate vaccinations for organizations larger than 100 folks, as we know. What, if any, impacts is that going to have on us?
It doesn't have any impact on us right now, unless the government changes the restriction. It has zero impact on us right now.
So even though we're an employer,
right, but we fall under the stipulations that do not apply to that.
okay.
Thank goodness. Okay.
Well, that is thank goodness. But
is.
once again, but the federal government's dividing us once again. They're dividing us public versus private, but that's
yes,
okay.
Sir, they are. Yes, sir, they are.
But
if I could also say something real quick, I've had a lot of, and I'm glad you brought that up. I've had a lot of community members inquiring because of things they've read or things that may have happened across the country. I just want to be very clear that our school nurses are there. We have no vaccines on our campus. We will not administer vaccines. We have nothing to do with the vaccine rollout. Our nurses are there to deal with our medically fragile students on our campuses and to deal with emergencies or issues that our students encounter until a parent or guardian can get there. At no point are we going to do any kind of vaccine rollout. Vaccine rollouts are going to be done by the parent with their provider and their family medical physician and do those things. So I just want to be very clear because there's been some questions on that and some things you may have read that may have happened elsewhere. That's not St. Tammany. So I just want to make sure we're clear on that. Okay. All right.
Mr. Durman.
Thank you, Mr. Winkler. Mr. Jabby, I think it's I think we should point out the fact that this election was to be held a month earlier, and because of the storm and everything else that transpired, it's been moved to November. So if you could just expand upon that just a little bit, because I don't want people to think that it just came out of the blue
right.
or whatever.
Right, correct, Mr. Durman. So this election was scheduled for October the 11th, but unfortunately with Ida and everything that happened, the governor and the registrar of voters decided to move all the elections that were scheduled for October to November and everything that was scheduled for November to December the 11th. So this has been on the books. We've had the resolution basically monthly by this board to address our mills in these propositions. And so I've communicated this to all of our faculty and staff. We've sent letters home to parents so that everyone was aware of what's going on and what's taking place. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Bro.
Thank you. You mentioned it is 25% of our total operating budget. I know what our total operating budget is, but I'm wondering is that everything, including
general fund.
State? Okay, so general funds.
Yes, sir.
So in dollar figures, how much is it?
About $100 million.
Okay, thank you.
Sir. No problem.
Any other questions? An old timer that used to work in the system told me today, said that this school system is the engine that runs the parish. We have good schools, people move, they buy houses, they start businesses, and they raise their kids in this parish because of our schools. So we really do need this, and it's at a tough time because there's a lot of other tax things on there, but this is one that is a renewal, and we need it. So we need people to get out. We need everybody who goes out and vote to support this. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Winkler. Thank you.
You gonna do red ribbon week?
So our schools, when we did the resolution at the last board meeting, our schools celebrate Red Ribbon Week, and our classroom doors are decorated. Our students dress up. We bring in guest speakers, and we get our local law enforcement municipalities to help us to promote a drug-free zone and to promote anti-drug verbiage. Channel 13 has produced 2 special videos that we'll be playing, that we played to our junior high and our high school students. These are stories that, the first one is going to be a story that was made popular by the docu-series entitled The Pharmacist. Mr. Dan and his wife, Annie Schneider, who are with us here tonight, had a young son that passed away due to a drug deal. And Mr. Dan, Dr. Dan, fought to seek justice for his son, but also to educate the youth around the state of Louisiana and nationally about the dangers of drug use. So please take a look at this right now, and then I'll talk to you about PSA with Chuck Preston here in a few minutes. Thank you.
Well, I got started in my mission, you might call it, okay, when my son, unfortunately, was murdered in the 9th Ward of New Orleans. Attempting to buy drugs. I had no knowledge of his addiction, okay, but obviously he had an addiction. I came to learn a lot about addiction after that, but I also had to go on a mission. I had to go in and try to find his killer. I did that, but then I had promised God, basically, that I would go on a mission to try to discourage kids from doing drugs and do whatever I could do to teach and educate and reduce the drug problem. My son Danny was actually a very, very peaceful kid. Never had a fight, never had a detention. Some kind of way he drifted in and tried a very potent drug called crack. It became addicted, and that thing plays with your mind. And Danny had this idea that you don't do anything wrong, everything's gonna be okay. But it's a chaotic situation when you start messing around with drugs. You can get yourself in a position where you don't do anything wrong and you do everything right, and you're just buying a drug, but you can get killed. The horror that parents go through, okay, is, you know, our son left our house at about maybe 10:30 at night, told us he was going out to get some notes to study for an exam. After he left the house, we were sleeping, and about 2 o'clock in the morning, there was a loud knock on the door. And obviously, we jump out of bed and we go answer the door, and there's 2 policemen standing there, and we can't figure out what's going on. Can we come in? And then they asked us to sit down. And they said, you know, your son had been shot. At least that's what I heard. And I said, what hospital was he in? And they said, no, he's dead. And I now think maybe they actually said that he was shot and killed, but I didn't hear that. Neither did my wife. She yelled and said, no, he's upstairs in his room. And his sister ran to his room, and she yelled down, Mom, he's not in his room. And the horror of understanding that all of a sudden your son is dead. And many parents get a phone call and told their kids are dead. But it's a shock, and it really destroys you forever. I knew that the person that killed my son did much worse than what my son did. And so I had to find his killer, okay? And again, I went out and walked the streets in dangerous areas, which has made it a big story, okay? And I beat the path for months and months and months, and finally I came across a witness, and she became a hero in this story. Well, you know, I'm a pharmacist, and I find myself in an unusual position of knowing about addiction and knowing about the opioid drugs and seeing it right in front of my eyes. This drug fentanyl that I'm talking about is extremely lethal, okay? An example of that I've been shown is if you take a pack of like Sweet and Low or Splenda and you open it up and you dump it out completely, and then you lick your finger and you go inside that packet and you taste some sweet. There's a little tiny bit of residue left in that empty packet, okay? If that were fentanyl, you'd be dead. It takes a speck. Some people show a penny, and the penny's this size, okay? And one little speck on that penny, one little crumb of this drug can actually many times be lethal. This drug is not a drug to play with, and the scary thing is you don't know what it's in. Well, you know, teenagers and young people really believe they're invincible. They just can't envision these bad scenarios happen to them. What a lot of kids don't realize is that one bad decision can change the entire course of your life. In my son's case, obviously, horribly, it led to his tragic death. One event, one misstep sometimes can change your entire life. You have to make the right choices. My message out there would be stay away from these drugs, kids. No matter what you do, stay away from these drugs. You're playing Russian roulette with any experimentation. And today we have pills now, fake look-alike pills now, that are laced with fentanyl, and one pill can kill. You are there, you're on the ground, and you see this developing. Take some pride in your school. Be worried about your friend, okay? You don't want to go to your friend's funeral, okay? My son's friends have regretted that all of their lives. And we've forgiven them. Initially, I was pretty angry with them, to be honest with you. I had a phrase, I said, you guys carried his coffin before he died. When I used to drive to work after my son was killed, there's a grove of trees in St. Bernard Parish that you drive through. And it's kind of a peaceful thing. It's a 2-lane highway and there's a grove of trees. I would go through there and I would pray. And I picked up on this sense that, there's always light at the end of the tunnel. And this thing actually was sort of dark, a canopy of trees, and you could see light in that tunnel. So when I finally did start my mission to talking in schools and doing what I could do to discourage kids and trying to work on this problem and save family tragedies, I named it Tunnel of Hope. But this is real, and people are dying, kids are dying. So do your part, and not only stay away from drugs, but do your part to be a leader, a peer that can interject in some way, shape, or form and help us reduce this problem.
Coming up new on Fox 8 News at 10, a young murder victim's family turns its grief into action. You'll see how they're determined to help police solve the crime.
Well, here's an update on several stories we've been following. New Orleans police have arrested 2 people for the April 1999 murder of 22-year-old Daniel Schneider, formerly of Chalmette. 29-year-old Preston Hunter of New Orleans and an unidentified 16-year-old boy are charged with first-degree murder.
Danny's first Christmas.
Dr. Dan and his wife Andy are here tonight, so I'd like them to step up and say a few words if they would, please.
Yeah, I'd like to give thanks to Superintendent Jabia and also Channel 13. They did a phenomenal job on this, especially Melody Menard and Red Sharp and Kevin Mumphrey. They did a great job on this. This reenactment really, really touched us. Even in the original docuseries, they didn't actually show what took place when the police arrived at the door. And the good thing about that is, we are on a mission to try to reduce this thing. And I think it hit home because we went to trunk or treat at Fontainebleau High just recently. And the kids, well, I took my grandbabies there, me and my wife and the grandbabies. And we had students come up to us. They recognized me. I had my hat on, and they came up to me and they said, they thanked me and whatnot. And what I basically did every time they thanked me and they wanted to shake my hand, some of them wanted to take a picture. I said, "Did you get the message?" And they said they got the message. So again, that was a fabulous job on that thing. Very, very professionally done. Again, my mission of educating kids is part of my commitment when I promised God that if he helped me get my son's killed off the street, I would go on a mission. Also, a few weeks before my son died, we had a discussion, one thing about his future, and one of the things he said, it was ironic at the time, I never would have dreamed he was using drugs, because he said that he wanted to do something to discourage kids from doing drugs. And then just a couple of weeks later, he was murdered. And so I'm here tonight, and that video is part of this, that we're doing it as a payback to God and a payback to in representing my son. Okay. One thing I wanted to point out too, in relation to my wife, I want to thank her. Okay. There's a part in the docuseries, if you haven't seen it, where I used to do a lot of recording. That's what a lot of people really is astounded with the thing. But I recorded things, I was kind of a stumble upon that. There was things I missed and there was things I got. Okay. And one of the things I inadvertently got was my wife crying out, "God, why did you take my baby?" And the producers asked me when they seen that, they said, "Would you like us not to show that or play that?" And I said, "No." I said, "Do it." Since my son died, there's been 1 million kids that have died from drug overdoses. Okay. And if you could have been in the houses of those 1 million people, all those mamas were crying. So my wife's cry represented the cry of 1 million mothers. And so this is serious. We cherish Tiger Stadium. Okay. And Tiger Stadium holds about 93,000 people. And as the video said, 93,000 people overdosed and died last year. What a death valley. You could fill Tiger Stadium with those that overdosed and died. So all we can do is all we can do. I'd like to ask y'all to share this as much as you can. I've shared it on all my advocacy with members. This video is going to be shown in Arkansas in a couple of weeks when I speak before a group. And everybody who has it can actually share it with friends and share the message there. The special message, again, was the 1 pill kills. Kids are familiar with Xanax and Percocet and Adderall, and they will overdo it. So let's make sure we get that message out there. And then I'll close with my foundation is Tunnel of Hope, and the website is tunnelofhope.org. And I'm trying, in addition to spreading awareness and prevention and education, we're trying to build a membership. And if we can build a huge number of people, tens of thousands of people, we might be able to have some influence over the politicians. Because when you go to a politician, okay, and you ask him to get resources or change policies, okay, if you can say, "I got tens of thousands of followers," sometimes you get more done. So I want to thank everybody again, and God bless.
Before we wrap up, we've got one more video. It's very quick. It's a public service announcement that we did for Dr. Charles Preston, our coroner, with a fentanyl message and some messaging that Dr. Dan kind of talked about. Then I'll kind of close up and we'll move on.
The dangers of fentanyl are really life-threatening in the sense that it is a very, very, very strong narcotic drug. And the deadly part is it suppresses respiration to the point where breathing completely stops. And within a few minutes of breathing stops, the heart stops. There's been a big push in St. Tammany Parish to try and prevent overdose deaths from opiates. So I want everybody to recognize that when you're going to do something you think may be innocent experimentation, it may in fact take your life. But unfortunately, these deaths are occurring not in hardened drug addicts, they're occurring in young people who are just trying to experiment and catch a buzz, but unfortunately, what they catch is death. And it really is just a sad ending to a potential magnificent life that simply made one bad decision, and they ended up in the coroner's office and ultimately in the cemetery.
I've talked to you guys. Dr. Dan and I have had some conversation about social media and that. And what's taking place is social media has platforms on there, and they are pushing these things on our students. That's why I'm trying to empower parents. As you've heard me speak before, please monitor your child's social media. Please know what's going on because there are fake pills out there. They've got pill presses. They're promoting these things on social media and on the internet to our students and exposing them. And we are losing young people daily. So I'd like to thank Channel 13, Dr. Dan, the Snyder family for this great job. It was a tremendous job. They put a lot of hard work in this, and you can see by the quality that we provided to our students, it was just tremendous. And at this time, I'd also like to congratulate Channel 13. Today makes 20-year anniversary of Dr. Menard and her team and the education that they provided to our students and everything that they have put into this school system. So thanks to them, and I appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Javier. We'll now move on to 3-minute speeches. Board members, remember you cannot comment to the audience member or to the speaker, and the speaker can't ask us questions or make remarks. That's a state rule. Okay, these are filmed, and if that is broken, then they look at it. And please do not pound on the podium because Channel 13, they're 20 years old, and don't damage their sound system back there. Okay, so at this time we'll go on. Our first speaker is Brant Osborne.
Brent Osborne, President of the St. Tammany Federation of Teachers and School Employees. Good evening, board members, Superintendent Jabia, administration, members of the public. I'd like to point out one of my guests tonight, Ms. Carol Ullman, our teacher from Covington High. She's on the mend after suffering something unthinkable, but I have to say she has the heart of a lion after talking to her, and I would like that you keep her in your prayers, and I promise to do my part to keep her on the path to recovery and do anything I can to help her. Tonight we have some good news, but we can't really say anything until the next meeting. But I just want to say, working in a spirit of cooperation, Superintendent Jabby and I came up with something that I think will give employees a lift at a really difficult time. We also talked about no-cost measures. We always talk about the teacher plate, right? We keep piling on. 19 years as a teacher, right? I never remember anybody taking something off the plate. So We talked about some ways, not just for teachers, but all our school employees, as we suffer shortages and all kinds of additional demands. So the key is, let's just get to the end of this year and keep every single employee we can, because everyone is precious at this point. We can't afford to lose any of them. I'd like to reiterate what Superintendent Jabbia has said. These are not new taxes with these millages, but it would be catastrophic to lose this funding. So I would urge everybody to get out there and vote early if you can. But if not, November 13th is coming up, and we need your help. Thank you.
Next on the agenda, Rhonda George.
Hi, I'm Rhonda George. I'm a school bus driver, owner operator. As employees, we need to consider the consequences of a no vote for the millage renewals. Loss of millage renewals will mean cuts. We want pay increases and bus operation increases, not pay cuts. Without the millage, we'll have pay cuts. This will not happen without the millage renewals. The employees of St. Tammany Parish School System needs to support the millage renewals, vote yes, and support the union that is working so hard to get us that increase. Thank you. Please vote yes.
Next on the 3-minute speeches, Caitlin Castleberry.
Good evening. I'm Caitlin Castleberry. I work with a group of families and individuals with disabilities across the state. We call ourselves the Wolf Pack. I'm here to discuss cameras in special needs classrooms. In the past 2 years, St. Tammany Parish schools have brought forth an unused balance of over $4 million in IDEA funds. It leaves St. Tammany with, specifically in the IDEA funds account, $13 million for the following year. We are asking St. Tammany to find the funds and develop a pathway to bring cameras into special needs classrooms upon parental request. From the proposed discussion that I've seen, it looks like we may be going down the wrong path with word trickery to avoid funding the cameras. There's a very slight variation of proposed language versus what's in the state law currently, and this will create an illegal situation for the parish. We have to follow the state law according to the word of the state law. There's not a lot of interpretation or the ability to insert new language. That being said, we have only 7,000 special needs students in St. Tammany Parish currently. With only the IDEA funds of $4 million, if you divide 7,000 into 4 million, it comes out as an excess of $571 per student. We have verified through multiple sources and through public records requests that each camera per student costs $400. We definitely have, for the past 2 years, the funds to pay for these cameras. This does not address the $92 million in CARES funds that has been dedicated to St. Tammany Parish in the wake of COVID from the federal government. To say that we don't have the money currently on hand or expected to come down is not accurate. To not provide a policy or a pathway for parents to get these cameras into classrooms is not following the letter of the state's law. I would ask you all to take your attention away from word trickery and bring it to developing a policy that allows us to implement a law that is protective of and exonerates the schools, the teachers, and the administrations far more often than it does. I would also like to ask the board to take their state mandated ethics training. Mr. Nation, you have no ethics training on the board since 2019, perhaps. There's other members. I won't say everyone's name. You are required to take your ethics training by the state. We are not above the law, any of us. Thank you very much.
Next, Kathleen Canino.
I'm Kathleen Canino from Covington. I'm going to read a letter that was written by Senator Foyle to y'all. Dear Mr. Harrell, I am writing to ask that you and St. Tammany Parish School Board support Act 456, which I passed this last session to provide cameras in self-contained special education classrooms. Many students in self-contained special education classrooms are nonverbal. Being nonverbal prevents these students from advocating for themselves or being able to communicate with their parents and caretakers about their day at school. A group of concerned parents brought the need for these students to have a voice to my attention, and I, along with the co-sponsor, Representative Mark Wright, introduced the bill to address the situation during the 2021 regular legislative session. Act 456 was supported by Bessie and provides parents the ability to request cameras be installed in their child's self-contained special education classroom to be their voice. In addition, protecting these students, the cameras can also protect teachers from allegations of abuse. The CARES Act has provided school systems with the opportunity to fund new projects. I urge you to find funding and support your most vulnerable students by implementing Act 456 in St. Tammany Parish. Sincerely, Franklin Foyle. And I also wanted to just ask that if y'all do change the language and it says the funds must be allocated instead of when available, that you discuss Act 456 prior to voting on the budget tonight, because it's after the budget, and if you change it to allocating funds, and you won't be able to allocate the funds because the budget will already be finalized. Thank you.
Next on the 3-minute list, Lee Barrios.
Lee Barrios, retired teacher. I wanted to ask again, I've asked numerous times, formally made a request for Mr. Harrell to put the subject of all the federal funding that we've received as an agenda item, excuse me. And yet it still hasn't been done. I would still like to see it, even though our ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 funds have already been allocated according to their submission to the state. It totals approximately $92.5 million of just ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 funds. That's about a fifth of our total annual budget. What does that mean for funds available for local needs freed up because of that extra money? How about cameras in the classroom? It's available. Why don't you allocate it? Where does the budget reflect the ESSER and ESSER 3 funds and the other CARES Act funds that we've gotten from the government? Also, I have specific concerns about some of the items because I have looked at that budget detail for the ESSER funds, like the continued use of Edgenuity curriculum, which proved to be a failure in the virtual school, but has been given another contract for $200,000 for 2 years to be used on credit recovery. Numerous items that are justified in the ESSER detail are justified because of a $7.1 million reduction in MFP. Is that a projected loss in the MFP or a real loss? I don't remember hearing about that huge reduction that we're having. What are the results of the survey? The single survey that represented public input, which was necessary for these federal funds. What were the results of those, and how do they line up with how this money was actually spent? The public deserves to know, and I would think that the school board would want to know. Thank you.
Our final speaker is Ms. Hickman.
I am here again because I am concerned about our jobs. I just got this 7 million for football fields. Oh my gosh. All right, the system needs to be more aware of spending like we have when we are faced with limited funds. I mean, we all have funds, we all have to do it. It just seems like there's just funding that's going in other places that doesn't really need it. The school system also needs to be aware of what it does to its employees because we are the ones that interact with the parents and the children. And just like I stated before, when you mess us over like you did when you lobbied against us for higher, when they lobbied against us for higher operational pay, and then you smile to our face and ask us to help you with the millage, to keep the millage. What do you think our answers might be? What do you think we may tell others that we interact with on a daily basis? We're not a team anymore. We need to get back to that. That's what we used to be. And I used to enjoy my job and I used to enjoy the team that we felt. That is not felt anymore. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
That finishes our 3-minute speeches, so we'll move on to Ms. Niehaus. I have an update on nurses. Oh, we got what? Oh, I skipped that. Excuse me, Ms. Niehaus. Don't have those on here. So we're going to approve the minutes from last month, correct? Got a second? Okay. Mr. Kuzan moves and Ms. Page seconds, so we'll vote on that. Oh, did I open that up to the crowd first? Any comments by the crowd? I'm sorry, that's not on my agenda right here. No comments? Any comments from the board? No, so we'll go ahead and vote on that. Got that? That passes unanimously. Okay, 13 yeas, 0 nays. So now I have Ms. Niehaus next. Is that the way you have there? Okay, sorry, Ms. Niehaus, come on up.
Good evening, Mr. Winkler and board members, Mr. Jabbia. I have been working diligently with our staff members in human resources to bring you some updates regarding our nurse initiative. On September 2nd, as you remember, the board graciously granted funds for us to have a nurse in every school. We met with our current nursing department to discuss this initiative, and we've been very busy since that date. We allowed our current nurses to look at their assignments and look at the schools that they would like to be in next semester. And we allowed them to choose, and they've done so, and they're very excited about moving into their new assignments. Some chose to stay where they were. Others chose to move into new school assignments. After we did that with our current nurses, we began our recruitment efforts. We had about 70 applications already on file over the years because we just never knew when we would need a nurse. So we looked at all 70 applications and we reached out to all 70 applicants to say, are you still interested in working in our school system? Ms. Pennison emailed them individually, and we had 23 people respond almost immediately to say, yes, I would still like to be a school nurse with the district. In addition to that, we posted an advertisement on our website. We posted a notice in a quarterly publication called the Pelican News, and that's a publication that's sent to all Louisiana RNs. We asked our nurses to assist with these efforts, and we said, please, if you know any of your colleagues who are interested in working in our school system, please let them know what our initiative is. We worked with our communications department. We did a social media blast on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. We contacted our local universities who currently have nursing programs, specifically Southeastern, Dillard, Nichols, McNeese, Delgado, and LSU. We contacted a local chapter for our National Black Nurses Association, and what we learned is we have a local chapter here in Abita, and the president, Miss Rachel Weary, was extremely gracious and open to what we had to say, and she actually put me on their agenda for one of their chapter Zoom meetings. So I did that mid-October. We reached out to the NOLA Black Nurse Association via their website. We reached out to the National Association of Hispanic Nurses and contacted them through their website. After all these efforts, we received an additional 52 applications. So after the confetti fell and we were very excited, we have a nurse at every school. Now what do we do? So we had about 122 applicants that we reviewed, and we invited people for interviews. We broke up into 2 teams because we needed to do this and we need to move on it as quickly as possible. So it was myself, Terry Charchet, who's our lead nurse, Belinda Pennison, Human Resources Supervisor, and Neely Estrad, our nurse practitioner who is in our Health and Safety Department. So we conducted 66 interviews to search for the top 26 nurse candidates. We concluded our search last week. We started to extend job offers. We began checking references on all candidates. And we are happy to say that we have identified 26 nurses. So we will have a department of 55 nurses on the school grounds. We have our lead nurse and we have our nurse practitioner. So we are very excited about this initiative. We're in the process right now of developing a new hire orientation program, and that's going to consist of classroom instruction, on-the-job training, as well as bringing in outside resources to train our nurses. We plan to have our new nurses effective for January 10th, which is the second week of second semester when we come back. And at the same time, we're going to have our nurses who chose new sites move to their new site at that time. So now you're up to speed on what we've been doing since you approved the budget. Does anybody have any questions for me? Yes, sir.
Tell me, you said you had 26 new nurses?
Yes, sir.
And one in each school?
Yes, sir.
Is it possible for us to be provided with a list of them?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Harrell.
Thank you so much, Ms. Niehaus. I appreciate you doing it. I just want to say I know a lot of the schools are, especially rural schools, are very excited to have the nurse on site because they are so far from hospitals and different things. What kind of things are the nurses going to be doing at the schools?
They're actually going to take care of all of the medical needs on campus. So any type of acuity situation that a child may need, daily medicine, or any type of accident that a child may have on campus. And with a nurse being at every school, what we want to work towards is education. We want the nurses to have a bit of time to be a part of that education program with the health and safety.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Other board members with questions? Oh. I'm sorry, Doctor, go ahead.
I just wanted to thank you for your efforts. I was listening to that and I just began to feel exhausted.
I'm kind of tired.
Wow. But seriously, given our climate, what we've been through with the pandemic, I think one of the things that has emerged through all of this is an absolute respect for our nurses and the role that they play. So thank you for your role in recruiting that many candidates.
Thank you. I had a lot of help, so thank you.
It sounds like it. So thank you to the entire team.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the board? It is a big help because being a principal, if you're up there and you have a student that you don't know how to handle, it's good to have somebody there right there, because some of these nurses had to do 2 schools and might not be
Absolutely.
there. So this is great. And thank you for all that work.
You're welcome.
Mr. Winkler,
Real-
you go ahead. I'm getting attention.
I just want to also thank Ms. Neely for all her, I know she doesn't get much recognition back there. It does make me nervous every time I see her. I think she's gonna tell me I need to go on a diet, eat more asparagus or something.
Mr. Winkler, if I could, I'd really want to compliment and thank Ms. Niehaus, Ms. Pennison, Neely, Estrad, and Terry. They've done a tremendous job. Y'all heard what she's been through, and I've been watching it on a daily basis. They've done a great job. We met with the existing nurses yesterday and today, and they had some training, and they're excited, and we're all excited for this new program. So thank you, Lori, Belinda, Terry, and Neely. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
Is that it? Thank you.
That's it. Thank you very much, Ms. Niehaus. Next, we have the STEM education spotlight, Ms. Jenkins.
Chair Winkler, President Harold, board members, Superintendent Javia. STEM education is the intentional integration of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics and their associated practices to create a student-centered learning environment in which students investigate and engineer solutions to problems and construct evidence-based explanations of real-world phenomena with a focus on the student's social, emotional, physical, and academic needs through shared contributions of schools, families, and community partners. STEM teaching and learning goes beyond the mere transfer of knowledge. It engages students and equips them with critical thinking, problem-solving, creative, and collaborative skills, and ultimately establishes connections between school, workplace, community, and the global economy. STEM education is best sustained by supporting individual content areas as well as integrated experiences. Additionally, integrated coursework and projects can be used to support both the academic standards and career and technical educational standards. STEM education is not restricted to the disciplines of mathematics and science, providing coursework in other subject areas such as language arts, social studies, health, and art, provide opportunities to provide learning, processing, research, literacy, and communication skills that also support and enhance endeavors through STEM programs. This evening, we have a STEM video showcasing what our students are doing in all of our K-12 schools. We have STEM programs there, so we'll share the video with you now.
I did a science experiment. When you do experiments, it's exciting. I like how the pumpkins sing to float it. I learned about things that are dense and things that are not dense. Science is fun. I love science.
Pumpkins do what, boys and girls? Float. They float.
We were doing a STEM activity of Newton's first laws and his motion and forces and stuff like that. Everything is hands-on, and we get to kind of pair up with the people that we like and talk to them and think about it together. STEM is actually interesting because you get to actually learn for your future career while you like play with stuff.
To me, STEM education is very important because I plan on having future careers in STEM. I plan on having some sort of engineering job because I've always had an interest in how things work and going down to the very basis of it.
The E stands for engineering, and we might want to be an engineer in the near future, or we might want to be a mathematician in the near future, or something that relates to math, which also relates with STEM.
I wish more people would do the engineering courses because they're so much fun and they genuinely prepare you and make everything easier in the future as you go through school.
You could like make stuff like the engineering thing that we had, and then you might want to be like an engineer when you grow up, maybe your future career.
So we'd also like to say a special thank you to the participating schools. That's Maroney Elementary, Florida Avenue Elementary, and Fontainebleau High. And this concludes our CNI Spotlight for tonight.
Any board members have questions for Ms. Jenkins? We've had this program for a while, haven't we?
Yes, we have.
And it's been very successful. So thank you for bringing us up to date on that. Ms. Yates, ACT. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Dermott.
Excuse me, I know we had pushed the STEM programs down and into the junior high levels, but then we were going further into the elementary. So do all of the schools have these programs in them?
All of our schools have STEM activities, and they may not be a formal program as far as like a Project Lead the Way or a robotics club and things like that. The majority of them do, but all of our schools, even down to pre-K, have centers where the kids have opportunity to participate, like with STEM kits and do building and exploring, all the way down to pre-K.
Right, and that's, I remember us doing it, but with all the other things going on in the last couple of years, it's kind of been a blur. But I know that we had focused on trying to push it even further, all the way down into our lower elementary grades to get them more interested in it as they move up into the higher grades. So certainly do appreciate all y'all's efforts. Thank you very much.
Hold on, Ms. Baker.
Sorry, thank you. That's really awesome, actually. Is it integrated into math or science curriculum, or is it by choice, or how does the child get access to these experiments?
In the lower grades, it's part of their center time, especially in like pre-K and kindergarten. And then it's woven into the curriculum as far as in their science and math. And also, that all of our schools have a one-to-one Chromebook initiative, so the technology is embedded. And then as we move up to upper grades, we do have special math and science clubs and also robotics clubs. And then, like I said, the Project Lead the Way grants are integrated into science and math classes as well.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay, no further questions. Ms. Yates, ACT report.
Oh, sorry. All right. Good evening, Chairman Winkler, Superintendent Jabbia, members of the board. Tonight, I will be presenting the ACT WorkKeys component of the school performance score for our district. In addition, we will review some descriptors of ACT and WorkKeys, as well as the class of 2021's ACT performance. Last month, Dr. McCurley presented the assessment index of the school performance score. Remember that the assessment index is a combination of growth and proficiency on LEAP 2025, which accounts for 25% of our school performance score as indicated by the red and blue portion of the diagram. If you look at the gold portion of the diagram, it represents the ACT WorkKeys index, which also counts as 25% of our school performance score. ACT assesses students' mastery of the state and college readiness standards. The college readiness benchmarks are the minimum ACT scores that predict a high probability of success in the freshman core classes of college. All 11th grade students are expected to participate in the statewide March ACT every year. After all 11th graders have taken the March ACT, the TOPS Tech students in 11th grade take the WorkKeys test. WorkKeys is an indicator of students being prepared with the academic and career skills necessary for success in the workplace. Notice the levels of achievement. Earning a silver or higher is the benchmark for the school performance score. We do not earn any points for a bronze. In addition, students who earn a silver or higher receive a National Career Readiness Certificate. This certificate enhances a student's resume as they prepare to search for employment in their career field. This table indicates the number of points a school and district can earn toward the school performance score based on a student's ACT composite score or their workkeys score. A student that scores an 18 on the ACT or a silver on workkeys earns the school and the district 70 points toward school performance. A 22 on the ACT or gold on workkeys earns 103.4 points, and a 27 or platinum earns 120.4 points. The maximum number of points a school and district can earn is 150 for any student that makes a perfect score of 36 on the ACT. Notice that we do not earn any points for students that score an ACT composite of 17 or less. In addition, the school and the district will receive a 0 for any 12th grader that never takes the ACT. This slide shows how our average ACT composite compared to the state and the nation. The district and Louisiana composite is calculated using the student's best score. The best score is used for college admissions and for school performance scores. ACT calculates the national average score for all public and private school students anticipating graduation that year using a student's most recent score. Although the district average composite declined by 0.3 of a point, our students continue to score substantially higher than the state and the nation. The district, state, and national averages all dropped 0.3 points from 2020. The class of 2021 did not have the opportunity to test in March of their junior year because of the shutdown. They were given an opportunity to test in the fall of 2020. Any 12th grader that did not test in the fall was allowed to test in March of 2021. The Louisiana Department of Education came out with an updated ACT report on the class of 2021. This slide has been included in an updated version of the PowerPoint on Board Docs. This is a comparison of St. Tammany's average ACT composite to other school systems in Louisiana. Again, this data is based on each 12th grader's best score. As I said earlier, our average ACT composite dropped 0.3 of a point. However, we did far better in comparison to most school systems listed. Another consideration as we compare ourselves to the other school systems is the number of students tested. St. Tammany tested 2,342 students. Notice Zachary has the same composite score as St. Tammany, yet they tested only 374 students. This table indicates the percentage of 12th grade students that met the minimum ACT requirement for each level of TOPS scholarship dollars. TOPS Tech is awarded to students pursuing a degree in a technical field. In addition to a minimum ACT score of 17, a minimum TOPS core GPA of 2.5 is required. TOPS opportunity, performance, and honor scholarships are awarded to students seeking a degree at a 4-year college or university. The TOPS opportunity requires a minimum ACT score of 20 and a TOPS core GPA of 2.5. TOPS performance requires a minimum ACT score of 23, and honors requires a minimum ACT score of 27. Both TOPS performance and honors require a minimum TOPS core GPA of 3.0. Notice the percentage of students earning TOPS honors scholarship dollars held steady at 17%. Although we had a 3% drop in the other TOPS categories, we attribute that drop to our students having fewer opportunities to test and the relaxed admission requirements by many colleges and universities. Moving forward, we were fortunate to have 2 teachers and 1 curriculum specialist selected to participate in a study conducted by the School of Education at LSU in collaboration with the Louisiana Department of Education. The purpose of the study was to determine the extent to which the ACT standards align to Louisiana student standards in English, math, and science. Our ACT committee will be meeting in the near future to review the outcomes of this study and use the information to assist in guiding our high schools as they prepare their students for the ACT. This concludes the presentation. At this time, I'm going to ask Ms. Strataberger, who supervises ACT and WorkKeys, to join me, Mr. Winkler.
So for questions, Mr. Bro.
On one of your slides where you're comparing the various schools, I noticed that there's a math error on the last line, St. Charles. Could you add some corrections to that?
Yes, sir. We can get that done and get that back
Okay.
out to y'all.
And then my next question is, how did you decide which schools to compare it to? Am I going? Because there's 64 school districts in the state, and I'm just wondering, why these were chosen.
So some of these are in our surrounding area, as well as some that
are not.
You're correct. But they are all part of a group that had a composite of grade of 19 or larger, a composite ACT score.
Okay, so you chose the ones that are closest to our composite
Yes,
score.
sir.
Okay,
Yes,
thank
sir.
you.
Mr. Durbin.
Thank you. Ms. Shades, is this your rookie presentation?
This is it. Yes, sir.
So baptism by
passed.
fire, huh?
I did warn her, Mr. Durbin. I warned her.
Well, congratulations or
Thank you. I
condolences,
appreciate
whichever one. No, actually, very, very informative. You were probably here because of some of my comments at the previous board meeting.
No comment.
But I think this is very important for us to see and understand because, as I stated in the other meeting, that the ACT score is what most community members view success at.
Yes, sir.
Because they're looking at it for their child to go to college or whatever. And I also was kind of miffed that if a student of ours scores a 17, we don't get rated, kind of just scaled down. We just get an absolute zero, and that's a failure. Yet they can qualify for financial assistance on some TOPS programs for, a technical college degree or whatever it may be, and still and still get points and advantages from it. So I think the system ought to get some points or advantages out of that as well. It just seems like a double standard.
Yes.
And look, I'm probably the one that would be going that alternate route, so I wouldn't be the one getting a 36 on the ACT, but
I understand.
it's, I appreciate the information. I think it's very, well presented and very informative for all of us to get a good understanding of both scopes of comparison. So thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Hines, go after, I got Ms. Baker and then you, okay?
Thank you. This is very good information. My only, I'm very excited to see that we have 3 district participants on the committee
Yes, ma'am.
that looks at this. As a parent, part of my frustration, and I don't know where the breakdown is, I want to say I believe it's with the College Board, but for those students going to a 4-year university, that meet the minimum requirements for TOPS, that meet the minimum requirements on their ACT score and their grade point average and their pre-college courses, the amount of students that are failing college algebra that first year is tremendous. So my children are both postgraduate, one's in law school and one's in the work field, but they did not do well in college math at all. I mean, one probably deserved not to do well. I'm not saying that, but one, but she graduated, and I don't mean throw her under the bus. She's doing very well, but the other one, I mean, I was so frustrated by the amount of times, and for those parents who have kids going to college, I mean, this is the thing, is that they're doing these kids in our district are doing everything we're asking them to do. We're doing everything the state's telling them to do, and then they go into a 4-year university and they're not meeting the mark in those first freshman college math classes, and it's expensive to the parents. It's it causes havoc in the household, and I don't know where the breakdown is or what we can do as a district to make sure that the kids that we send off are prepared, as our district tells the parents that they're prepared, as the state tells the parents that they're prepared, and then they go there and they fail. So I don't know what that answer is, but I'm hoping that with these participants that we have, that there can be some sort of alignment with what's happening with the College Board or whoever that is, the provost or whoever that is that's making these decisions, to look at the amount of kids that are not successful in freshman math, right?
And there is some disparity between the ACT standards and Louisiana state standards. And so the challenge becomes, how do you mesh the two? Because of LEAP 2025 and the standards that have to be addressed for LEAP and the ACT standards that have to be addressed for ACT. So our hope by having these participants on this committee for this study will bring back, information that they've gleaned from the study that we can use to make some changes so that we can better prepare our students for college algebra.
Ms. Hines, then Ms. Page.
Thank you for the information you've given us tonight. I was really pleased that you mentioned relaxed admission requirements at the universities, because am I wrong? Did they just not even count the ACT score?
So that was left up to each college and university as to how they treated it. Some said we're not going to count it at all. Others relaxed on that a little bit, I think, as far as the amount of emphasis that they put on it. Beyond that, I don't know.
Okay. Because I think that could affect your mindset going in to take the ACT, the pressure's off, or even some students decided just to forego it completely.
Absolutely.
Especially if they didn't plan to pursue a 4-year degree.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any idea whether the admission standards are not relaxed for next year?
So from what I understand, they're back in place
Okay, good.
at the schools. But again, every student has to check where they're looking to go to check that.
Sure. All right, thank you.
Ms. Page.
Thank you, Mr. Winkler. Ms. Baker, I guess I just wanted to touch base to see where you got your information about the college algebra. Because all of the freshmen that have parents that have freshmen in college that I have spoken to with this class, their students are doing incredible in college. I mean, I'm just telling you what I'm hearing from all of the parents. They're doing very, very well compared to their peers. So, and across the board in math and science, they're all doing very, very well. So that's the feedback I'm getting from my parents. I can share that with you. I can share it with you. Absolutely.
Any other board members? Now, Louisiana are we the only state that has everyone take the ACT or the workkeys?
No, we are not. Mr. Otterberger, can you speak to that?
We're about one of approximately 15 states around the nation that tests all of their seniors, requires that they take the ACT.
And yet we have a higher average than the nation, which I think is saying something, because the ACT really isn't for everybody.
Yes, sir. That is correct.
But we're giving it to everybody,
Yes, sir, we are.
and we're doing well at it. So it just kind of shows you that we can accomplish some pretty amazing things when you.
And I just have to say, for the class of 2021, despite all the challenges they experienced last year, their commitment and perseverance through last year, it's just it speaks to that for our students, our teachers, and our parents, that we only dropped 0.3 of a point and we're still ranked #1 in the state.
And some of those kids will go back and take it 2 or 3 times. I mean, you sit through that thing one time, and that's like, I'm done.
I would like to take it today.
Mr. Winkler.
Mr. Nation.
I didn't have a question until you brought that up, which is a great point to make. Ms. Strataberger, I'm gonna ask you an odd question. Define all. I mean, is it literally all, or some?
Who takes the ACT?
Right.
Every single member of the class of 2021 took the ACT. We probably had maybe a pocket of a few students that didn't take it, but of the students, they are required to sit and take it their junior year. They're administered the Louisiana statewide ACT in March of their junior year. Members of the class of 2021, as Ms. Yates stated, because of the shutdown, did not take it. However, they took it in October 2020 as seniors. They had an additional opportunity to take it in March of 2021. They had an opportunity, additional opportunities if they wanted to increase their score by taking it on various national test days throughout 2020 and 2021. But yes, all of our seniors.
And that includes our special education students?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, it does. Thank you.
Dr. Richardson.
Just a quick question. Do the students pay for this test or do we fund it?
The Louisiana Department of Education
They
pays
do,
for
the
every
DOE
student
does.
to
Okay,
take.
good. I was curious because I know some families may not be able to afford that, and being a requirement, I made an assumption that we must be funding that somehow.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
thank you.
Next is Mr. Kuzan and then Mr. Green.
Thank you. I just think that we need to categorize these scores from different parishes. When you say, I don't think it's fair to compare St. Tammany with parishes that may have half the students taking the test, some taking a quarter of the students. I just like that input to let the parents and everybody know that we test all the students. And this is a remarkable, a tremendous job that you all are doing when we can come up with the highest average in the state, when half only how many parishes even take the test. I just think it's a compliment to the staff and the job you guys are doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Mr. Green.
Thank you. If you look at some of the private schools in our neighborhood and across the lake, they put a lot of emphasis on ACT, and they have a lot of classes and additional training. And I think everybody who's ever taken the ACT that took those classes realizes how helpful they are increasing the scores. what is our district doing? What kind of resources, funding are we providing our high schools to take that training, and particularly seeing that it's such an important part of our school assessment, the success of those kids getting into schools and getting scholarships? Are we doing enough?
Yes, sir. Thank you for that question. There's always room for improvement, and that is the work that the ACT committee will continue to do, leveraging the opportunity of the fact that we have 2 teachers and 1 district staff member on that LSU, participating in that LSU study. We do have a plethora of resources available to our students. We offer ACT tutoring, we offer ACT boot camps, we have ACT integrated prep in our English 3 curriculum, we have workkeys prep in financial literacy, business English, and technical writing. Our schools offer ACT prep courses for Carnegie elective credit. There's a myriad of things that we offer. Additionally, we have started, and we're very excited, that we are sending teachers to go through summer training to become ACT certified educators. And so that is a wonderful, very rigorous opportunity for these teachers to get professional development and bring it back to our school system so we can improve our ACT preparation plan.
Mr. Bro.
Yes, there was a point you made in your presentation that I'd just like a little bit more clarity on. You said that the scores that we were showing, and I think they're for all of Louisiana, that we take the highest score if they take the test multiple times. Do we take the highest score from each category? Like if they do well in science one time and not so well the next time?
It's the highest
Composite score. Okay.
It is not super scored.
And you said that the national score is the latest. So there could be a discrepancy where we're not comparing the same thing.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Ms. Yates, Ms. Strataberger, thank you very much. Very good job. If there's no more questions, then no further business. This meeting is adjourned.